I'm Jacqueline Bettidapour, Chair of the Cobb County Democratic Committee. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Cobb Democrats have gone virtual to bring the candidates to voters through a series of virtual forums and candidate interviews. Today, we're speaking with Jimmy Herndon, a candidate for Cobb County Sheriff. Jimmy is running against two other Democratic candidates in the June 9th primary election. Welcome, Jimmy, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Jimmy, let's start by having you take a few minutes to introduce yourself to the voters, your background and experience, and why you decided to run for sheriff.
Okay. Names on the ballot, I will be James Herndon. I go by Jimmy. Everybody knows me, but on the ballot, I'll be James Herndon for official paperwork purposes. My background, I went to Valdosta State University, have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Then I got a master's degree in criminology. And then later on, I also obtained a Master of Public Administration because I knew it would be helpful in this field, public sector work that I do. I have been in some sort of law enforcement for the past 25 years. I worked right out of college. Through college, I did internships and worked for various departments, DEA, Valdosta Police Department, Lowndes County Sheriff, that kind of thing before I came up here. And I worked for the Cobb County Sheriff from 2001 until the end of 2017. In that capacity, I worked everywhere in the sheriff's office, from the lowly detention officer at the bottom to a supervisor later on in our detention facilities, out on the road serving warrants, crime scene investigations. I've done pretty much everything there in the sheriff's office. People asked me to run. Actually, I had a lot of people approach me over the year and a half preceding this, like asking me to run. It wasn't something I initially wanted to do, but I decided that, yes, looking at this, I was likely the best person for the job. And I want to keep people in mind that even though Cobb County's turned blue in the last Democratic elections, we still had a situation where Hillary Clinton, the number of votes she got was still less than what Sheriff Warren got for sheriff. So that means we need to turn out new voters, people that normally don't vote. They're actually voting for Warren, even though they're voting for the Democratic presidential candidate. And we've got to, work on that. From the beginning of this campaign, we've worked hard to build a coalition with people all throughout this county. People, white, black, old, young, everything. That's what we want to work on, bringing the Cobb County, bringing us together to get the best sheriff we can in office. And I think my campaign reflects that the best.
Could you please describe the role, responsibilities, and jurisdiction that are unique to the Sheriff's Department as opposed to the Cobb County Police Department?
Sure. I'm going to try not to get out in the weeds here, being this is like my profession my whole life. I know it pretty inside and out. So in addition to standard police work, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. The sheriff has to know how to do all of the standard law enforcement things: traffic, working recs, serving warrants, arrests, the general law enforcement duties I think the public looks at. And Georgia law, there's at least an additional 67 very specific duties that sheriffs have to carry out, and the sheriff in Cobb County carries out. I've got a list I'll try to go over real quick. So we all know about the sheriff runs the detention center. That's a pre-trial facility for those not yet convicted of crimes where they go to prison or where people serve misdemeanor sentences. They transport prisoners to and from court. When people get sentenced to prison, the sheriff is the one that takes them there. The sheriff is in charge of serving all of the warrants that are issued by courts in Cobb County. And if warrants come in from other jurisdictions, no matter where they're at in the country or even the world, we can serve those here in Cobb County and extradite the people to and from wherever they need to get to face court. The sheriff serves all the civil suits, divorces, custody hearings, civil papers, all of that stuff. The sheriff does all the mental health transports for the county, both forcible and voluntary committals. The sheriff will take a person where they need to go for treatment, even if it's not in Cobb County, free of charge. The sheriff will take them wherever they need to go. The court actually enforces all temporary restraining orders and serves those orders on people. And when they do, they seize their guns and put them in evidence. The sheriff runs the narcotics unit for the county and controls all of that, all the agencies that are part of it. The sheriff oversees the fraud unit, the fugitive unit. The sheriff is the one that carries out all evictions and foreclosures. The sheriff does tax sales and seizures and court order things that they do by the court. The sheriff protects the courts. And lastly, the sheriff actually maintains custody and control at the locations where we actually vote and oversee that the ballots get from A to B safely without anybody impeding on that process.
So, what should voters be looking for in your background, experience, character, and temperament to evaluate you as a candidate for sheriff? In short, what makes for a good sheriff?
A sheriff, first off, in my opinion, I preach this, I think has to look at this from a different perspective, not as that as a necessarily as a police officer or like a prosecutor or something where they're, kind of going after people. I look as a sheriff as the one office you vote for and should be a protector of the community. And I really mean that, like everybody in the community. If they're within the bounds of Cobb County, I believe it's our job to take care of them and protect them. I don't care where you're from. That should not matter in how I carry out my duties. My background, for one, I can speak about me. My background is I didn't just kind of fall in this profession. This is what I picked to do. Being working in a sheriff's office is a very specific, non-glamorous work. Jails and court systems and doing all the kind of behind the scenes action. Probably about 80% of the criminal justice system and makes it work is actually done through the sheriff's office. TV, we see all the glamorous police running around doing all that kind of stuff, but the sheriff is the one that kind of drives the train behind the scenes that keeps it all going. Looking at me, I posted all of my evaluations and records online. You can read all of them at herndonforsheriff.com. I actually wanted people to see how I did my job, everything I did, so they would be able to make a decision for themselves. But I believe my background, my extensive training, and very extensive specialized experience in working in a sheriff's office sets me apart as the best candidate, including the sheriff himself, who's never worked in the jail either.
So aside from the adult detention center, let's put that to the side for a moment. Can you name 3 important changes you'd put in motion during the first 100 days of your administration?
Sure. Setting aside the jail, since there's so many problems there. One of the first things I want to look at is deprioritizing low-level drug offenses. That's marijuana. The sheriff, in our discretion as the sheriff running the narcotics unit for the county, which actually controls multiple agencies underneath that umbrella. I'm not a fan of arresting people for misdemeanor marijuana. While it's still illegal and I can't let you walk away with it, I can choose not to take you to jail for it. We seize it, bag it, label it, destroy it, and you go on about your day as long as you're not like DUI or something like that. I also, of course, I want to get national accreditation for the sheriff's office. That ensures the sheriff meets high measurable standards that are available to the public and everyone. It's a public process of getting the law enforcement side functioning and certified nationally, the healthcare system within the jail certified nationally, and the jail itself certified nationally, since those are such big things that the sheriff does. The other thing is we need to review and go over the budget. Right now, our sheriff hides how he spends his money. I know just from the parts I can peek at, there's a lot of waste and a lot of fraud. One of the things I need to get in there and do, and especially my fraud background, is look for the corruption and the waste. Let's cut that out, and probably we'll have to do a forensic overview of the finances and the budget for the sheriff's office, because as we know, the sheriff he's worked really hard to hide the money, fought the ethics commission on this, found out he was running money through a children's charity, all this kind of stuff. So it's going to take some work to get through all the barriers he set up, but making that budget public, how we spend your money public, and getting input from the public. Who these bids go out to, who has cars, where we buy our gas, all of that stuff should be public, because anytime, I've said this before, I believe secrets breed corruption. And if you're trying to hide things, then nothing good really comes out of that with government. So just off the top of my head, those are the 3 things that I would like to get rid of.
So let's move on to the adult detention center. There's been a lot written and a lot talked about of late: inmate deaths, lockdowns, and generally poor conditions at the adult detention center. So what would you do to improve conditions there?
Okay. So I've had hundreds of people reach out to me before I decided to run for office, and while I've been running for office. A lot of them know I'm the guy that's worked there. I actually worked there, walked in those floors. I know the conditions they're talking about. I know how to take an inmate from arrest out on the street all the way to the prison system and release. I've done all that. So I see the parts that dramatically need to be improved. But at the detention facility, a few things. I know we're going to touch on 287G. That has to go away. The healthcare facility has to be updated and upgraded. That place has not been updated since the early 1980s, whereas the population of Cobb was so low, and now it's, population of Cobb is about 760,000. About 35,000 inmates a year go through that facility. So those are things we need to look at. And I know Sheriff Warren has touted like GED programs, parenting programs, all these things. And they sound good, but the problem is the average jail stay is only 10 days. It's different from prison. So we can't really institute those programs, and the sheriff does them now, and they don't work. We need to look at a different way of approaching how we keep these people out of jail. And as sheriff, there is a power I have as sheriff. Anybody has $1,000 bond or less that is a non-sex offense, non-DUI offense, I can actually take those people and grant them bond as sheriff and get them out of that facility, because I truly believe people that do not need to be in the facility, we don't need to keep there. If we can get them out, we need to get them out of there. That jail is a mess. I can get to the structuring part in a minute of it, but there's way too many people in charge, and there's very few people actually doing the work at the bottom. The morale and staff leaving constantly is a real problem there. Most of the people I know that have left, including myself, we did not leave to take greater pay somewhere else. We left because of the conditions. Most people go to a job where they actually made less because the conditions are working much better. So those are the things initially I'd want to touch on besides the sheriff's office, the jail.
So you mentioned the 287G program. I think viewers would benefit from if you could tell us a little bit more about what that program is. And you've stated you're against it. If you could please explain why you are against the 287G program.
Sure. 287G is a program. It's a program numbering that the federal government, particularly Homeland Security and ICE, Immigration Custom Enforcement, gives to this program, where they train regular local law enforcement deputy sheriffs on how to carry out their duties for them. So they train right now about 12 deputies to sit out at the jail that we could really use on the floor working elsewhere because they're so short staffed. We've had 48 deaths in that jail, so I think it's a waste there. And they do ICE's work for them. What it is a program that allows a local entity we bear all the costs of Cobb County, we bear all the risk, get no reimbursement from the federal government. That alone is a problem in itself. But that program on things as such as low as not having a license, they will put a hold on them and put them up for deportation. I disagree with that program wholeheartedly. There's a few things. The legal side is you're skipping the Fourth Amendment, because if you don't charge them with a crime and you just put a hold on them, it skips due process. That person doesn't have due process in court to even say, hey, I'm not really this guy. That actually happens quite a bit. They detain the wrong person. The other part of it I really hate is it's the most anti-American thing I think we do here. Literally anti-American. We invite these people here. The vast majority of them are invited here to work. They have children here. They establish here. They do pay taxes here. They cannot get any benefits here, as contrary to popular belief. And we literally, the government, function as an entity to rip families apart. We will take the U.S. citizen children and scatter them to the wind in foster care and deport their parents, and no one cares. And it's awful. And on top of all that, it costs us $80 a day to hold these people in jail, pay all the deputy salaries, and we get nothing out of it. I just think it's a really heartless program that needs to go away. I don't see the law enforcement benefit at state level that we need to be participating in that.
So do you see the need for a major restructuring of the sheriff's department, including changes in staff and personnel, or is it just a matter of new leadership and a new tone?
Oh no, it needs a new tone and it needs leadership, and of course it starts at the top. My experience, I can tell you from working there for all the years I worked there, how to put this bluntly. Sheriff Warren does not run that sheriff's office. Now, we hold him accountable because his name's on everything. Sheriff Warren, my experience, rarely comes to work. Sheriff Warren has a driver. He doesn't even drive his own vehicle. He can explain that one day to y'all. But he doesn't run the place. He lets his 1, 2, and 3s run the agency. So he's sitting up there collecting a salary no matter whether or not he comes to work or not, and he's letting them run the agency. That's his chief deputy and his colonels that he appoints. Those people are appointed on loyalty, not on merit, not on ability. While some of them do have ability, they are far, and from my opinion, the most qualified people to be in those positions. I think we need to reevaluate those positions. As I said before, I don't think we need 5 colonels running around and all these majors. They skipped the rank of captain so they could fleece taxpayers and bump them right up the major and make a higher pay. I think captains need to come back, but there should be more workers than there should supervisors. I had days when I came to work where I was on duty and it was the major, the lieutenant, and a sergeant, and we had 1 deputy out on the street. That is ridiculous. It needs to be restructured from the top down. It does. Detention officers in the jail, deputies reassigned to the streets where we actually train them to be. But the restructuring sheriff's office, that'll come with a budget, hiring legislative liaisons and all these made up jobs. And I think that's it needs to go away. We can take that money, that alone on that position alone will get me another psychologist, possibly a psychiatrist that I can staff that jail with. That's just something we sorely need inside that jail is mental health, more mental health counselors to go over these things. And the restructuring absolutely has to take place. Some of the personnel will come from inside the sheriff's office, but a lot of them I will have to seek from outside the sheriff's office and bring in other people from other sheriff's offices that have experience.
So the sheriff is the CEO of a large organization with 700 employees and a budget of approximately $89 million. What experience do you have that prepares you to manage an organization of that magnitude?
So as I said, right now, the current sheriff's not even doing any of that himself. They don't even have a certified accountant there working. Knowing when you're running an organization, if you're the president of the United States, the governor of the state, a lot of it has to do with who you surround yourself with. I'm smart enough to know that I am not an expert at everything, nor do I need to be the type of leader that I am a dictator and dictate everything. I need to get the right people in the right positions to carry out the functions necessary to run the office. But as far as me, my background, right off the bat, early in life, I got thrust into leadership roles with things I didn't want to do. Just to be honest, my grandfather and my grandparents, I lived with them growing up. My grandfather was the largest honey producer this side of the Mississippi, had over 4,000 hives scattered throughout Georgia and North Florida. He died in February of my senior year in high school. So my dad's disabled. My grandmother couldn't do it. It all fell to me as a high school kid, getting up at 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning, working as much as I could before I went to school, got out of school, continued to work. I did that endlessly for months until August, until we brought all of our crops in and sold the business. And that particular year, we made over $6 million profit. But I mean, that was really earned. That was hundreds of employees I was in charge of. And my granddad, when he ran businesses, he had cars for employees. He actually gave them housing. It was a little bit different farming operation than I think other people have. But I learned right off the bat to do that. And from there, I mean, I went on in college, and even in college, I was assistant manager, Home Depot, millions of dollars in inventory. And then, of course, when I got to the sheriff's office, supervising and leading numerous people, covering through multiple divisions and handling all this money and being in charge of it. I have the background and knowledge to do this, and I know the right people I need to put in play to help these things come together, because no one person can lead such a large agency alone. You're going to have the right people. And I think if anybody tells you otherwise, they just haven't seen the sheriff's office.
So recognizing the vast majority of law enforcement officers are dedicated, conscientious public servants, there are times when some may act inappropriately, endangering those around them and eroding public trust. How would you handle staff who violate the public trust and do not follow authorized policies and procedures?
Okay. So this is a thing where me and the current administration butted heads pretty badly on. I got to the point where I was encountering multiple criminal deputies that we were dealing with at the sheriff's office. Personally, myself, I have been in charge, and I've put 5 deputies and former staff in jail. 2 sent to prison, and 2 served their sentences here locally, for everything from raping inmates to stealing to that kind of thing. Right now, the sheriff has about 20 people he's had out on bond for felonies, for misdemeanors, and he just continues to have them working there. The public doesn't really realize about this. He just makes up new jobs for them when they can't carry a gun legally, because, if you're out on bond for a felony, you can't carry a gun and all this kind of stuff. Sheriff Warren just creates a new job for him and continues to pay him. That stuff needs to stop. It needs to be public. Right now, you cannot get access to reports, an accident report, a warrant, anything online. I used to run the records unit at the sheriff's office as well, so I know this can be done. They hide this. Every record we have of that agency, once it's not an open investigation and it's went through and it's something simple like a warrant was served or something that happened at a jail, that needs to be posted online. It's easy. If we make less money in open records requests, whatever, it's your money anyway, so you should just be able to get access to those records for free. There are certain things you have to censor, victims of crimes, names, and stuff like that. But otherwise, those things should be out there for free. We should always put them online for everybody to see. It's transparency. Again, that whole secret speeds corruption. I totally 100% believe that. The budget is the other issue. The budget line by line needs to be posted online. If I go out and I buy something like controversial. We'll say my guys that are in specialized unit need new MP5. They're kind of in a smaller type assault rifle. I need to explain to the public why I need to make that purchase, why that's in your best interest, how that helps us accomplish the mission, and how that makes public safety safer. So if I post this all online, with proposals online, take feedback from everybody publicly online, I think that's about as transparent as I can be. And I think that's what we need to do going forward. If there's not a reason under law to keep it a secret, then it just should not be a secret.
So you've kind of covered my last question there, which is the community is concerned about a lack of transparency. So I was going to ask you what you would do as a sheriff to increase transparency, but I think you've covered a lot of that. Do you have anything else you'd like to add in that vein?
No, I think I covered it. I mean, I'm including that to be these mysterious internal affairs cases, this like when someone's arrested or in trouble, you should be able to see it, the outcome. The other thing I'm gonna do with discipline on employees right now, no one does, no department in this county, police department, sheriff's office, it will not tell you what happens to the officer when they're in trouble unless you really drag it out of them almost with court action. I know this from pulling records myself. That needs to just be out there publicly, just what happened. And disciplinary hearings where they actually have the hearing where they find the officer, you know, this mysterious thing that goes on, it just needs to be recorded. And that way it is available. And if somebody wants to request it and see our thinking from getting to A to B on whether to terminate this officer or to keep this officer, it'd be right there. You'd be able to see it. And I think that would dramatically help. And as far as transparency, the other thing, when someone's shot, when someone's involved in a serious critical incident, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation must, I'm going to make that a policy. I don't care if I have to write into the county with the commissioners or do whatever. They must be brought in when one of my guys or women did something they shouldn't have done, or it's even in question. The GBI should come in and do an independent investigation. That makes me be hands off. They do everything and they investigate it. They write it up. They present it to the grand jury and they decide what to do with it, not me. If it's something alleging a crime, that needs to have as much light shed on it as possible. We just immediately get rid of the whole dispelling that we're trying to hide anything.
Great. So that wraps up the question and answer section. I'm going to give you a few minutes for a closing statement and to make any additional comments you'd like to make.
Sure. So one thing I want to talk about is when I started on this journey to run for sheriff, I ran because I feel we have a real opportunity here in Cobb County to defeat a corrupt Republican, one that's held power for over 16 years in Cobb County. He's manipulated the sheriff's office, which is an absolutely essential institution. It's existed since 6000 BC. It's been with us for 236 years here in Georgia. He's done so for his own personal and political gain. I think the incumbent is in there for the wrong reasons, and it's time for him to go. He suppressed the right of protesters. He suppressed the rights of me, myself, and I took him to federal court and made him open up the Facebook page for the public. I actually took him to task on that. He's suppressed the rights of detainees. He's holding them in conditions that are contrary to the 8th Amendment right now. He's intimidated and scapegoat immigrants, staff that try to speak out against him, and those in the public. He's also taken campaign funds and ran them through a children's charity and tried to fight the State Ethics Commission on what we need to do on this. He uses taxpayer dollars to fundraise. Those are just things that we just shouldn't allow as voters to kick out. When I become sheriff, I'm going to implement these policies I talked about earlier, as many others that will ensure the sheriff's office is accountable to you, the voters. I know that some people watching may not agree with my tactics during this campaign, how I get from A to B. But you've got to ask yourself, what type of guy do you want facing off in Warren in the fall? He's quiet right now. He's going to be scrappy. He does not want me facing him. I'm the guy that worked there. I know where all the secrets are buried. We can't play nice with him going into the fall. If we do, we're going to have what we had before. We're going to get the Democratic people that we want in the county at certain positions. And then, like we've seen before with the voting, the sheriff somehow still won enough votes to win. We just can't allow that. But I want to ask you, if you want to help my campaign, then you need to help us get change. You need to speak up against injustice in the future, and I'll speak up against it every day. And I'm asking people to join me in this campaign, in this fight to get Warren out of office and to vote for James Herndon on June 9th.
Thank you, Jimmy. That's James Herndon on the ballot. We all know you as Jimmy Herndon. But thanks for joining us. And on behalf of the Cobb Democrats, I'd like to thank you for running and wish you all the best. And thank you for going virtual with us to speak to the Cobb voters today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And so in closing, I'd like to urge everyone to vote by absentee ballot, vote by mail, vote by drop box, vote from the safety and comfort of your own home. You do not have to risk your health or that of your loved ones to have your voice be heard for this primary election. For more details on how to vote by absentee ballot, see our webpage, cobbdemocrats.org. Again, thank you for joining us. Take care and stay safe. Good night.